Have you ever noticed that trusting God sounds really, really simple until something throws your life like off kilter? Oh, yeah. It's easy to believe that he loves you. You believe that he's good. You believe that he's faithful. And then something happens to disrupt your regularly scheduled programming, and you have instant like fear, and you find yourself wondering, like, is God still with me? Am I going to come through this? Is he disappointed in me? Is that why this is happening? Or worse yet, like, can I trust him right now? And so these struggles aren't just theological, they're relational. And that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah. And for many people, that relationship with God is shaped in the same wounds from the relationships with other people.
Right. And so today we're talking about attachment, specifically attachment theory and healing, and how that relates to the character of God. And so most of us learned how to relate to God long before we understood who he really is. Welcome to Hope Through the Hard, a curated coalition podcast where we talk honestly about life struggles and how to face them in healthy, hope-filled ways. In 2 Corinthians 4, Paul says, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed." That's the purpose of this space. Real conversations about the hard things in life and the hope that carries us through. Visit curatedcoalition.com to find our coaching services and book a free consultation.
Hi, I'm Levi. This is Ashley, and we have Lincoln and Lyndon both doing production today. So, kid question?
Okay, so what was your favorite genre of music as a little kid?
As a little kid,
I was really like, it was either classic rock.
Yes.
Or, because that's what my parents listened to, or Christian, like 90s, 80s, 90s Christian, like Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, Point of Grace. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do remember going to a Point of Grace concert and thinking that I was something special. Yeah. Go West, Young Man by Michael W. Smith. I could probably still, but like, what would I still listen to of the two? Classic rock.
Yeah, classic rock was definitely that, just from parents listening to all the time. And then, the 90s, early 90s was kind of a rap. Yeah.
MC Hammer.
Oh, yeah.
Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice.
Okay, boys.
I like rap.
Yes, we
like
know.
Christian rap.
Okay.
You said
That's good.
You said as a little kid.
Okay, as a little kid, all we listened to was mom's music.
Which is why you knew the Blink 182 song yesterday at the pool.
And Christian music.
Yeah, I'd go with what Lincoln said on both things, rap and mom's music, from the car going to the pool for like 5 hours. Okay, not 5 hours, but still.
It was not. It was definitely not 5 hours from our house
like-
to the YMCA pool.
Not the pool, the beach.
The beach, yeah. Yeah.
We would listen there the whole time.
Yes. Yeah. That was that, like, mid to late 90s. Good question, Lincoln. That one was
Thank
fun. Okay, so jumping back into the podcast, attachment theory is what we're kind of exploring today. And attachment theory began by exploring how children related specifically to the people who cared for them, whether that was a babysitter or a nanny or their parents, whoever. The problem with that is those things that children practiced relationally with their caregivers that formed their version of attachment, that doesn't just stay in childhood. It influences how people see themselves, how people see others, how they experience relationships with friends, colleagues, peers, how they approach intimacy, and then most importantly for your spiritual development, how you see God.
Right. And those are some of the big things of how the kids continue to learn. And then the questions they're asking, am I safe? Do I matter? Are these people trustworthy or not? And will someone come when I need them?
Right.
And that's a huge thing of, with those answers, then internalized shape the way that they believe and act.
Right. Yeah. And if you are still under the assumption that you can let your child cry it out, that last question answers that. Like, will someone come when I need them? Right. If you are still letting your children cry it out, the answer that they develop subconsciously is no.
Right.
And so that has a really negative effect on the way that they look at abandonment in the future. And so that's just a little extra. If you are a new parent or you hope to become a parent someday and someone older than you has said, oh, just let them cry it out. They'll be okay. They'll eventually stop crying. They will eventually stop crying. But they've also learned something by doing that. And that's a really helpful thing to know that. Will someone come when I need them? Because that will shape the way that child then thinks of, will God be near when I need him? Or can I trust my spouse to come when I need them? So that's just a whole separate like rabbit hole. Yep. But I do think it's important to note there. So decades of attachment research suggest that this is crazy to me. Only 50 to 60% of people are securely attached. They demonstrate secure attachment patterns. So that means roughly 40 to 50% of all adults experience varying levels of either being anxiously attached or being avoidant attached or disorganized attached. And we're really just going to talk about the first two, anxious and avoidant, today. But researchers such as John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, Mario Mikulincer, and Philip Shaver, so those are some of the attachment researchers, have demonstrated that early, like your earliest, not just early, but your earliest relational experiences significantly influence your expectations of yourself, of other people, and then of your relationships throughout your life. So if you have ever found yourself struggling with trust or abandonment fears or being emotionally distant, someone saying like, you're not here for me when I need you, something like that. Or if you just in general feel unsafe in relationships, that's not unusual. You are sitting with 40 to 50% of the population. You're human, but you don't have to stay in that. And that's kind of what we're hoping to help you see
this episode. Yeah. And that's some great things to reflect on, of understanding the big question of how did the people who raised me influence the way I view God?
Yeah.
And kind of goes back to parents or grandparents or whoever it might have been. A hard question to kind of answer of that is, how did they influence that?
Yeah.
And every home's a little bit different.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So when people come to you, like when you were in ministry or for coaching, or even like just for support, knowing that you are a former pastor, do you see any of these kinds of connections between the way that people relate to others and the way that they relate to God?
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of, especially as we celebrate Father's Day and how everybody looks at fathers, and some have them, some don't. And, and then that also compares to, how God is our Father. And there's been a lot of kids that I've ministered to and had lots of deep conversations with of, hey, God is your Father. And they're like, I don't know what that means. My dad left when I was a kid and I've not seen him since.
Never seen him.
Not involved, not plugged in, and that happens all over.
Yeah.
And so then it's who is their dad figure that they're looking at? Because they do search to find one, because we're built and made that way. So they eventually do find somebody, whether that's an uncle or grandpa or a mentor. And with that, then that becomes who dad looks like, which also is going to influence the way they view God as a father.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very sad. And I think that highlights, a whole separate issue, the fatherlessness issue.
Right.
But we'll kind of come back to the point of this because I don't want to get off on another rabbit trail. But I think that that's very true, that many, many people unknowingly assume that God is like the people who raised them.
Right.
And so if their caregivers were unpredictable or maybe they were overly critical, angry, emotionally unavailable, like they couldn't go to them if they felt like they had a problem or a concern, or if they were inconsistent. That's a big one. Like sometimes the parent says yes to one thing, and then when they ask another time, they say no. Or if their parent's difficult to please, those experiences will shape the way that we see God.
Right.
And so if love felt inconsistent, we assume that God's love is inconsistent. If our parent seemed angry, we might assume that, when
God's
you
gonna
read
be
the Old Testament, that God is angry, and the God of the New Testament doesn't make any sense to you then. If you were a kid who had to earn approval, you probably think that works-based ministry is what you should do because you're earning God's approval. Right. If your authority figure felt unsafe, you probably don't feel safe going to God. If people left, if you were abandoned, you probably believe that God is going to abandon you too. And so those are heavy.
Yeah. And it's going to weigh on you on whatever direction you go, because even in the next idea of, my faith, I've grown it. I believe in Jesus. I believe everything he's done. And I start to work and do things for him. Then it also can reflect I have great theology, but then I have this great fear. And so if I do something and I mess up, the all-powerful God's going to strike me down with lightning because I, got spanked as a kid because I messed up, or and there's discipline, but there's a balance, right?
Right.
And some kids have seen no grace at all. And so that becomes a fear of God's called me to serve these kids, but I'm afraid if I mess up, then there's not going to be any grace. And that's not really true. But I know a lot of people, whether they were ministers or not, who would be afraid. They know God, but they're afraid of getting rejected by God. Or they're afraid of getting rejected by their friends or all the other people that are around them. And so fear just runs into that. They know grace intentionally, but actually struggle with accepting it. And some even struggle with giving it when others hurt them and do something wrong. And I think that's why we see a lot of church hurt involved as well. And then it becomes, the church people hurt me, and this is a situation of what's happened, and people leave the church.
Right. Yeah. Because the people have hurt them, and we never get to the point in our healing journey, or it takes us a long time to get to the point in our healing journey where we can separate what we've experienced from people with the character of God. And so that's sort of what we hoped to kind of outline today.
Right.
So the first I said that we were going to look at anxiously attached and avoidantly attached. So an anxious attachment says, will you leave me? And so most people who are anxiously attached, which is me, I have an anxious attachment style that I've been working on for like the last year since I took the little test and figured out that, oh yes, you are very anxiously attached. People often overthink relationships, replay conversations. That's me. Fear rejection. Yes, 100%. I would much rather just like shut somebody off before they have the opportunity to shut me off, are constantly looking for reassurance. It's probably one of the reasons why words of affirmation is one of my love languages. Thank you. That's the word. Struggle with uncertainty. The fear of the unknown terrifies me. And if someone is distant from me, I am super sensitive to that. So that's another thing that anxiously attached people do. When you look at that in your spiritual life, that sounds like, is God disappointed in me? What have I done? Is he mad at me? He's not answering my prayers. Have I done enough? Do I need to do more? Like, could I serve on one more thing? Like, I did learn no long enough ago that one's not so hard for me. Did I mess up my relationship with him?
Right.
For sure. Have asked that a lot. And why does he feel far away? So what does anxious faith sometimes look like in a ministry setting?
Depends on the church, depends on the programs of what they've done. Because some churches are Bible thumping, hellfire damnation of faith based, and if you don't follow all the rules, how terrible of a person you are.
The legalism strikes.
Right. Big time. And then there's constant question of, am I saved then?
Yeah.
Because we have many different denominations that kind of have their rules of you have to do the X, Y, and Z. And if you don't do X, Y, and Z.
If you do X and Z and you forget Y.
Right. and understand the biblical stuff of that. And that's a whole conversation one-on-one.
Right.
But that's some of the stuff of where I've seen in ministry and why people have such anxiety in their faith is dependent on the theology of what the churches are pushing of getting people to do. And so they're striving to do everything that they possibly can and forget to rest, as God tells us, take a Sabbath. So ministers especially will work, and forget to stop. And so that's some of the stuff that ministry of this anxiety is going to happen. And then I have to be perfect because I'm supposed to be like Christ.
Yeah.
And Christ was perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good reminder. If you are sitting on a board or if you are in church leadership and you are leading pastors, they need a Sabbath, like a real one, where they don't answer their phone and they spend time with their family and they go on vacation and they don't call into meetings. Like, just give them the time off.
Right.
So avoidant attachment, that I am not avoidant attached. So this one is a little bit different for me, but avoidant attachment says, can I trust anybody enough to actually need them? So people who are avoidantly attached often suppress their emotions. They are not vulnerable. They struggle asking for help. They are hyper independent, and they keep most relationships kind of at an arm's length. So spiritually, this looks like I can handle it myself. I don't need anyone. I don't need God. I don't need you to pray for me. I can do this. I've heard this a lot. God helps those who help themselves. Or, well, God gave me a brain, so I'm supposed to figure it out on my own. Oh, what? Like, no. Or I should be stronger than this. So.
Yeah. And I see this in church all the time as well, because a lot of people will push everybody else away. And that distancing everybody not involved also is because, and it goes back to some parents and how they treated them and reacting, they have to become independent. As a Gen X person, you hear that all the time of what Gen Xers did at 10 years old at home by myself. And hey, I got to take care of myself. And
cooking your food over a gas stove.
and you have to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then that's also what we think with our faith. And so I've seen this a lot where we have to be humble and learn to have help, have support, because then whenever we receive the double support from everybody else, because that's how God made us, then we see everything flourish more. And so, but in this part where I have to do it by myself, I'm going to be lonely in church. I'm going to have difficulty because I'm not going to let anybody else help me with these projects or serving in an area with God, having others be there. And so then it becomes, it's all about me and not trying to do everything for God. And so pastors, leaders struggle with being vulnerable as well in this situation. And that's very unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the question to ask here is, and ask yourself, do I tend more toward being anxiously attached or avoidantly attached? Or do you see a little bit of both in yourself? And there are lots of, just if you're interested in, are you secure, anxious, avoidant, or disorganized? There are lots of like online quizzes you could take. There are books that you can look into that will help you find your attachment style. It's good to know, because then that gives you kind of a jumping off point.
Right.
And this is the hope, because our attachment is not, we're not pinning this on you and saying like, this is your identity. This is how you will always be. It's your destiny. This is who you are forever. Attachment patterns are adaptive. Like we've talked a lot about our brain's neuroplasticity. And so these attachment patterns, in the same way as all of the other things that we have learned in our childhood, they are there for a reason. They served a purpose for a bit. And so if you're listening and you're like, oh no, now I have one more thing to work on. No, you definitely don't. If you are interested in working on that, there are things that, as coaches, we would be happy to send you like links to books or whatever, but take a breath. This is not another thing that's wrong with you. That's not what we're not the point of why we're talking about this today, right? The point is not a label, it's understanding. Like, here is a tool that will help you understand why you behave the way you do and why you have trouble trusting God. It's not condemnation at all.
Right. And so when talking about healing, and you've already been doing some of that, you start to every time notice a trigger, and you then challenge the lie, regulate your nervous system, practice healthy boundaries, experience safe relationships, and receive compassion. So these are the things to help you move forward, to help that security that you're not feeling. And these are the steps that we walk through in our coaching sessions all the time of, oh, you've noticed the trigger. Bam. Now we're naming it. And then challenge that lie of what's going on. And then we just keep walking through to that healthy phase to be able to heal all of this. And
if you need a little bit more, like if you have questions about what are we talking about, like how do I give myself compassion, or how do I set a healthy boundary? We've talked about that on this podcast more than once.
Yep. So attachment healing isn't separate from all the healing work that you've been doing and we've been discussing, right?
Right. No, it's definitely not. It's just a fruit of the healing. It's one more evidence that you're moving in the right direction, and you can kind of lean into a new area, or it will help you notice and name some of those things that you are being triggered by. And it's just another little tool in your toolbox.
Correct.
And so the theme for the last several episodes that we've kind of been hitting on is that God works in our humanity, not around our humanity. Right. And so it's the same with attachment theory. He is not sitting up there shaming you. He wants to meet you. He understands why you are afraid. Right. He understands how you got to be in that point. And he wants to come in and offer love and compassion and help you to, be in your story with you, not go around your story, but to truly redeem your story, to build that out as part of your testimony so that you can glorify him. And so he often, I know for me, heals the attachment wound with his faithfulness. Right. And so we've talked several times about neuroplasticity. Like, people are probably like, oh, you're talking about that again. But that is remember, that's just your brain's ability to form new relational and emotional patterns throughout your life. Like, even if the phrase that you can't teach an old dog new tricks, not true. You can always learn a new pathway. And so repeated experiences of safety and connection and trust create those new attachment patterns and pathways so that you are more supported and you are more safe and you are more resilient.
Yeah. And healing happens one trustworthy experience at a time.
Right.
That's what's going to happen. So you've got to take and outweigh the bad to the good. And so the more you get experience and more you put yourself into those situations to feel that trust and feel his faith, especially with God, the more you're going to heal each and every time.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point, is that secure attachment isn't just about feeling safe with other people. It's about discovering who God is, what his character is. And so that's what I would like to focus like the rest of the time on, his character.
Yeah, that's great. And we can start that in Hebrews 13, verse 8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Do not be led away by diverse and strange teachings, for it is good for the heart to be strengthened by grace and not by foods which have not benefited those devoted to them. I think is a great idea of God's always the same, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and don't be deceived by these other situations and the patterns of this world, and listen to God and watch him, because God doesn't change.
Yeah, he's consistent. And the second one that I love is that he's near. This verse is Psalm 34:18, and it says, "The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and save those crushed in spirit." And so most of the people who struggle with abandonment issues, I do, you do, are the ones who find themselves anxiously attached. And the beautiful thing about this is that God moves toward the brokenness. He is near.
Yeah. Limitations 3:22 through 23. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Great is your faithfulness. And it's so cool. Our healing process comes through repeated experiences through God's faithfulness. And that just says it right there of great is his faithfulness. It never ceases.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the last verse is Psalm 103:13. And it says, as a father shows compassion to his children, so the Lord shows compassion to those who fear him. And I think that most people would say that they trust God's power, but I don't think that most people would say that they trust his tenderness and his compassion.
Yeah. And that's a question for you to kind of reflect on as you're looking at God and seeing him today through whatever lens it might be. A question to ask is which attributes of God feels hardest for you to trust him consistently? Is consistency, his nearness, faithfulness, or compassion? And which one of those do you struggle with?
Yeah. Yeah. So when you look back over your own walk with God, how has your understanding of his character changed as you've walked through this healing?
I see him more, I think, is the key part of it. He's always been there, always showing up. And I think this is through the healing time is especially shown me how I've been trying to do it by myself. I've tried to do all these on my own and I don't need help in situations. And he's like, okay, good luck. But he's still there, willing to accept me and love me at any time I decide to turn around and ask for his help. So that's part for me has been like, I'm glad he's always been there and knowing he would catch me whenever I fall.
Yeah. And for me, it's the compassion. Like he is not an authoritarian. He's not lording over me. He's not gonna, he has no desire to spank me into oblivion. Like he loves his children. Like he wants a deep relationship with us, not just to like will us into doing what he says just because that's what he says. Like we have free will and we can do that. And he compassionately comes and moves us back into his now, will there be judgment? Yes, of course. But just that he's not standing there waiting to get on to me, I think is the thing that I have learned the most about from this healing process. So one of the things that we've tried to talk about in the last several episodes is what does this look like before you start healing, in the messy middle, and then after you've done some healing. And so before healing, a lot of people are going to say, what's wrong with me? And they're understanding that relationships feel unsafe, God is distant, and fear drives connection. And that's scary. And because you just think, I've done something. What's wrong with me?
Yep. And during the healing process, that's when people start asking, what happened to me? And because you start becoming more aware of all the things and your awareness increases, your old wounds become visible as you've hidden them and pushed them aside. Your patterns become more clear of here's the pattern and belief I've created, and the stage feels really messy.
Yeah. Which is why we've just nicknamed it the messy middle.
Messy middle.
But after a little bit of healing, people are going to start asking, okay, so what's true? What is true now? Security often increases, trust increases. You feel like you can put yourself back together. You believe truly that life is not perfect, but you will have people to turn to when it gets hard. And more significantly, that God will be there when, not if life gets hard, but when.
Yeah. And secure people do not struggle ever again. What happens is that we actually know where to go back to.
Right.
And so, I kind of jumped off the rails in this situation. Now I know where to go back to and be able to breathe through this, whatever it might be, a trigger or just the direction of whatever is taking place. So a question to ask, where have I seen God's faithfulness in my healing journey? As you process a lot of this stuff, where do you see God all the time. And depending on what stage you're in,
Yeah.
it will determine a lot of how much do you really see him in each one of those stages, because it does change.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you don't feel securely attached today, don't lose heart. Security is not something that you either have or you've lost or you'll never get again.
Right.
It is something that can grow. It takes time, but you can grow that. So every time you experience God's faithfulness and you tell the truth about the wounds that you have and the way that God's met you there, every time you allow yourself to be loved, not just by other people, but by God, instead of acting out of performance-based relationship, you're learning something new. You're building a new neural pathway, and you're learning something new, not just about yourself, but about God.
Yeah. And you're not going to just become fearless automatically in this situation of
Shucks.
I'm not, afraid of God, or I'm not afraid of letting people down, or whatever. What's going to take place is you're learning who God really is.
Right.
In this.
Yeah. And I think the thing that we have to remember is that the more that we can clearly see the character of God, his consistency, his faithfulness, his nearness, his compassion, the safer that our hearts become.
Yeah. And another question to kind of ask, what would it look like to allow God's character, not my wounds, to define my relationship with him? So it's a deep one. That might take some time to really think about it, because our wounds will overtake us in our thought process until we start to heal through all that stuff. So thank you for joining us. Like and subscribe the channel, and please share it with everybody else.
Thanks for joining us for today's conversation. My hope is that you leave here reminded that whatever you're facing, you're not crushed, abandoned, or destroyed. That's the promise of 2 Corinthians 4:8 and 9, and the heartbeat of hope through the hard. Visit curatedcoalition.com for all of our coaching services or to book your free consultation. We'll see you next time.